back here jamming away. I miss being live with some live music. Well, welcome to BTG. My name is Marissa and I am your founder and host. I am here with my co-host, Dr. P is in the house, Coach Ray is in the house, and
Yeah,
we
too.
are strategizing for student success. And we're so excited to be here tonight. We were backstage almost losing track of time that we needed to go live because that
Hmm.
conversation was heated. So all month long, we talked about fatherhood and fathers' influence, impact, and how it's important for our fathers to empower our young. And we're talking about today, we got breaking news talking about the Dr. P, you want to tell them about it? Let me digress. And what we were talking about, affirmative action and all that good stuff. Talk to us a little bit. You're on campus. You and Coach Ray.
Yeah. So, um, interesting is, of course, I think most people have heard that they overturned affirmative action by the Supreme Court here in the wonderful United States. So, with that being said, people aren't surprised. If I say that and anyone disagrees, write me. But we're not surprised. And we know what we're going to have to do. We know some of the things that are going on. And now, as we're wrapping up this month with fathers and fatherhood and men and family, what next? So I'm going to say that from the college campus. Coach Ray, what do you say from the high school campus?
Um, as of right now, I ain't really heard too much, not too much rumblings about it. High school students, it's funny because if you look at the structure of our high schools nowadays, like these kids love being around one another. Like they enjoy it a lot more, there are some issues, let's be real. Let's not be ignorant to the fact that some things happen, some things are said, some things are done on campus. But I'm just gonna speak from the realm of like how these kids operate. Like they not with that foolishness. Like they actually want equality. They actually want
Mm,
inclusion. They want to understand each other. Like one of the blessings for next school year is like I've been able to partner with the school has given me the approval to start a BSU.
okay.
You know what I'm saying? And so we started a Black Student Union at my high school, and it's kids like it's white kids that are like, bet like I'm trying to be a part of this because I want to learn this and I want like they want to know, and they're actively trying to strip knowledge away that people want to know. You're trying to strip legacies away that people want to know because this young generation wants to know why are we at where we at now. They ask why. That's why I call them the why generation because they want to know. You can't just give them a blanket answer and think everything's gonna be fine. These kids want to know. They want to know why things are moving the way they move.
They're not the generation
And
that is because I said so. And I
Right?
think
No,
we're
you ain't
that
hitting them with that no
generation.
more.
Yeah, we know that they're not going for that.
because they have so much, they have access to so much information that's willing to give answers to them.
Mhm.
And I always, this has always been my argument is that with our young people, the way that you breed in them maturity and responsibility, and they understand accountability and consequences, is by the more knowledge and understanding that they have in any given area or topic. If you take a student who is knowledgeable, educated in a given topic, the maturity in that young person's conversation is a whole lot different from a child or a student who is unaware. The responses, the accountability, and then also the confidence level. And remember, we'll just backtrack to our topic for the month is we talked about when fathers are involved in their children's lives, the
Mhm.
academic scale of achievement and success skyrockets. It goes up extremely high. And so with that comes a mature child, student. And that's what our young people are striving for. I can remember, and I'm just going to be very transparent. And I don't know if I ever said this on any of our shows before, but I remember driving and not driving, being in a car with my sister. And I wanted to talk. I wanted to talk to my mom. I wanted answers. I wanted answers. And I remember one day just I was so sick and tired of not getting answers. I jumped out the car. I jumped out the car and I just darted away. And my sister said to my mom later that day, she says, "Aren't you going to look for Marissa? Aren't you going to look for her?" And my mom said, "No, because if that was you, I would have to go look for you. But Marissa, I don't have to worry about because she knows how to handle herself out here in the streets." What I say that to say is the hunger that young people have for knowledge. When we get knowledge, we have self confidence. We're confident because why? Anxiety breeds with not knowing. When you're anxious, it's because you don't know the outcome. You don't know how things are going to work out. You're unstable. You're uncertain. But when you know, it just builds up your confidence level, and that's what our young people are screaming for is identity. They want to know who they are. And that comes when our adults tell them. When I was a little kid, they used to say, "Mikey." I don't know if you guys remember the commercial, "Mikey, give it to Mikey. He'll eat anything," right?
Mhm.
So that's how my family treated me. Marissa can do anything. She's invincible. She can do anything. So guess what? I identified with that. That stayed with me all of my life until today, where I don't fret to do anything. Our
Well,
kids,
it's the and I'm sorry I'm gonna cut you off, but if we look at the way it's going now, it's like the mindset of people who haven't grown beyond the 1960s are starting to be in charge again, or lineage of those people, bloodlines of those people are starting to be in charge again. Because let's be real and let's be honest and let's call a spade a spade. Because a lot of us take voting as a joke, and we don't take it serious because they not gonna do they gonna do what they want to do anyway, and this and the third. So when you don't vote, these are the results that you get, and that's why I don't listen to nobody complain. If you ain't vote, you have no right to complain. You have zero right to complain about anything. You were okay with it being what it was because you chose not to vote. So I don't want to hear you complain about nothing that's going on. I'm talking to the people who vote, to the people who actually care, the people who are actually involved in the community. That's who I'm talking to. The ones who, if you ain't vote because you somehow had this epiphany that voting doesn't matter, or somebody told you you was being lied to, whatever reason you have, don't complain. Just shut
yeah,
up and take what's going on,
yeah,
because
yeah.
you are part of the problem.
Right? And that's exactly how we ended up where we are today. It goes back to the presidential race where you put in the president, and then guess what? When you put in the president, he put in his what? Supreme Court justices, right? He got the chance to put in. And then this is what happens when you have that set. So it even goes back to, you talk about community. There are laws and decisions being made on our behalf every single day throughout
Mm-hmm.
the day. We look at the presidential race and we vote there, but there are so many different legislations that are being passed on a regular basis that we're not paying attention to, that there are times when we need to vote in between the presidential election. Are we showing up for those low level, community level votes that have to take place, elections that are taking place? So it takes us being educated and educating our young people. Now, when Barack ran for office, when President Obama ran for office, guess what? He did the grassroots work, right? He went to the young people and said to them, we had lines out to vote for him. Lines out to vote for him. Why? Because there was a stirring up. There was a stirring up. There was an educating. There was an equipping of our young people. It was a demonstration of the value of their vote, that they mattered, that their vote mattered. We have to keep that momentum. We drop it. We look at one leader and say that leader has to do it. But that leader needs everyone. He was stretching out. I watched and I said, "Do you know what this man is doing? This man is stretching out his hand to us and saying, 'I want to give you a seat at the table.'" That's what President Obama was doing. He was saying, "I want to give you a seat at the table. Come on, this is the grassroots. You all have to do the work." And that's one thing for sure that I notice consistently, that when it comes to doing the work, there's only a remnant. There's only a few people that will show up to really do the work. And
Yeah,
that's what
and it's that point right there that you just made speaks volumes because
Everywhere.
it does take work. And what has happened is, and what happened when Obama won both terms, and again, you know me, I'm gonna keep it all the way funky. So black people got to a point, some, not all, got to a point where they were like, well, he's just supposed to do for us regardless. No, that's like he's the president of the United States, not the president of black people. So he's running a country. So some decisions he make, we ain't gonna like. But if you do your part, then things might lean your way a little bit. He gave you access to do things, but it's the
For the
equivalent
first
of like if you get a principal that transfers to another high school, right? Principal goes to a high school, and they happen to be white, and then they only do things that benefit the white students. You're gonna complain when they're supposed to be the principal over the entire school. So how can you expect an elected official to move this way when you wouldn't expect a normal person to move that way?
no. And not only
He
that,
gave us the opportunity to put our foot to the ground and do the work. A lot of people didn't want to do the work. They thought he was supposed to come in and give us a million handouts, and that's not how it works. Sorry.
no. And he can't do it alone. Presidents don't do what they
They the
do.
face of the country. That's it.
They don't do it alone. And he gave us the model and the framework. Him and First Lady, they gave us the model and the framework. And we sat back, talked about them, criticized,
Yep.
and we just didn't listen and do. We did not listen and do, not on a large, massive scale to keep the impact. And unfortunately, you will burn a leader out if we don't help them. And you have to help the leadership. And the helping of the leadership, when we trickle things down, it comes down to households being together. It comes to mom and dad working together. It comes down to mom, dad working together and teaching and training up the young people, the kids, the children. That's why we're talking about mothers and their influence and impact and the results they're getting. We talk about fathers, their influence, their impact. If we don't unify, that at the end of the day, we do get what we get. We get what we get because we're not making our traditions, our values, we're not making them priority enough for our young people. And that's evident in the results. It's not about looking and observing what are the results. How well are our children doing in school, right? How well are they doing in their own identity? If we got suicide in the Black community that's up, something's wrong. What's going on? And are we taking the time to get down to the root of the matter? And then are adults being selfless or selfish? Because if you're selfless, then you're pouring into our young people. If you're selfish, you're at the club trying to look young, be young, and do you, boo. If we don't get it together, we are going to wake up and it's going to be a total mess.
We're gonna wake up and it's gonna be like 65 and 1965. We're gonna wake up. If we're gonna be real, we're gonna be real because at the end of the day, it's really just taking care of your business. Like you said, we have to be the pillars in our own community. We can't wait for somebody to come in and swoop in. We can't wait for Superman.
No one
Like, stop waiting for Superman.
Coming. Superman ain't
He's not coming. Batman not coming. The community is at large is what we got. So we have to be the heroes in our own community to step up and actually clean them up the way we want them to be cleaned up. I no longer live in the city I grew up in, but I'm active in the communities in that city. Why? Because I grew up there and I know what it once was and that it deserves to go back to its heyday. And these kids deserve to live in a better environment and better situations and have better opportunities. So when you moved away, some people do, I got out. You're supposed to. Now, teach the next generation how to get out. Teach them how to get out and teach them how to reinvest in the next group that's coming up. Because it's only going to, if we don't, the cycle's going to repeat itself. It's going to repeat itself instead of the cycle that repeats itself being positive. You look at these other communities, you look at the Jewish community, you look at all these other communities, they work their communities together. They pour into it together. Somebody might leave, but guess what? They're going to show somebody else how to get out. We so afraid of each other making more than us that we refuse to help each other be better. Yeah. You move out the hood, that's what you're supposed to do. But you're supposed to go show the next generation how to get out the hood. Right, not leave them there to act like not be the adult that's still trying to make them think being hood is cool. Show them how to get out.
Show them how to get out. Show them how to get out.
The hood ain't never loved nobody. But again, I'm the anomaly in it because I'm gonna be real with it. It ain't never loved nobody. The hood ain't never loved nobody. Street credit can't be spent in the store, and the hood ain't never loved nobody. So when y'all get this mindset of like, oh, we gotta stay real till we die, okay? But not this next generation, not while I'm here.
No. And we have crab in a barrel mentality, remnant of slavery. And it's also too what kind of heart we have towards one another. That's a big thing, is what kind of heart do we really have? There's a lot of healing that needs to take place in our communities, and we have to hold each other accountable. So it can't be, because we've already lost multiple generations. So you think, I remember when I was a kid growing up, we had grandparents raising their grandchildren. Well, now I know when I got to have my children, we had great grandparents raising their great grandchildren. So that's 2 generations, right? So we've already passed the 2 generation mark, and we're probably on the 3rd generation of missing out. And I think a generation is 40 years. And so we're talking about a good 120 years that we've lost. You got to understand that. You got to do that math so that we really understand that we're beyond critical mass. We've been having this conversation. I remember having these conversations in the 80s. Am I right, Dr. P? We've been having this conversation for a very long time. I remember it in the 80s, because by the 90s, I was having my kids, right? So, by the 90s, like 87 was my first child was born. So, we've been having these conversations, and the real thing is, when are we gonna wake up? Because I think that kind of like things got even worse. The thing that this is for me is that those parents who allowed their parents to raise their children are now grown and still feeling themselves, for the most part, on a massive scale. We are raising kids, and it's more about me than it is about our children. And so where do we get to the point where we begin to hold each other accountable in the conversations? I remember on Sweetheart Before I Say I Do, I had a gentleman who was talking about Black men being the commodity, and they're the hot things happening, and how they, all the women want the Black men, and wherever that was coming from, I really didn't understand. But what I said to him was, so what I said, my response to him was, you can't get upset with a woman when all she constantly hears in the men's conversation is that they have access to so many women. That's offensive to a woman to hear that constantly, to know that she's not important, to know that she's not valued, etc. And so I said to him, the only way that things will change, you can get a good woman with showing up for men, and men showing up, is we got to change the content of our conversations. That means that we have to hold other adults accountable for their behavior.
Oh, you cursing.
Yeah.
You cursing. You talking about accountability. You talking about a lost art. Accountability is a lost art. It it is the Ark of the Covenant of of the world because nobody can find it. So you trying to get grown people to be accountable in 2023 is a lot harder than trying to get kids to be accountable in 2023 because nobody wants to be wrong or admit that they need to change. Nobody wants to admit that they need to grow. Nobody wants to admit that they have flaws. Everybody's perfect. The guy you just spoke about who made that comment, it's one of the dumbest compliments I've ever heard from a man. Anyway, but there's no way that's a valuable comment if I'm trying to show interest in a woman.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? When I met my wife, I wasn't talking about how many chicks I was talking to. That ain't respectable conversation. The problem is now, like you said, we're so self-centered as individuals that we don't realize like we're dooming ourselves. We're dooming our own communities because we're so selfish. We care more about what we look like to people on social media than we feel like what we are to people. There's a difference. What you look like to people is a big difference between that and what you are to people. It's a huge difference. We care more about what we look like than who we are to people.
Yeah, and that's that. And when it goes back to, because remember, all of what we're talking about, our young people are watching. All of what we're discussing right now, our young people are sitting at the Thanksgiving, a family gathering. They're sitting around at now the barbecues, and they're listening to this conversation. That's what they're doing. They're listening to these conversations, and some are making bitter root judgments, right? Inner vows. I'll never be like my parents, or I'll never be like these adults. Those are inner vows. They're making bitter root judgments. Say, look at them. Da 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 da. They're looking at us and judging us. Didn't we do that with our parents? Didn't we do this with our teachers? Didn't we do this with the adults in our lives? We looked at them and we said whether we validated in our own mind and in our own heart what kind of person they were and whether or not we were going to respect or listen to them. Am I not right or am I wrong?
Right? No, you're right.
We looked at them and said, I really admire so and so and so and so, and I like what they said, and I'm going to apply that in my life. And then because we didn't really have strong role models on a consistent across the board in the community, because I remember as a teen growing up, we were losing quality leadership in our communities then. There were very random quality leaders to consistently feed into your life. And that's what our young people are looking at. And that's heartbreaking because they're the ones who we're going to have to wait until our generation die off and hope that the up and coming generation can succeed. Is that our fate? What can we do to kind of begin? My thing is that adults start holding other adults accountable.
For that to happen, a lot of adults have to be willing to lose friends. And that's the scary thing about it. Like, you got to be willing to lose friends. You got to be willing to lose relationships. You got to be willing to lose it to help. Sacrifices have to be made in order for the next generation to survive. And by I don't mean in the drastic of like death or anything like that, but sacrifices of more immoral thinking. You got to sacrifice the immoral thoughts, the immoral actions, the things that you know that don't line up with your principles. You can't compromise to fit in. That's our biggest problem, especially as people of faith. We compromise more than we do to do what God asks us to do. So we'll compromise our ideals to fit in. Because if I hold this person accountable, they may not be my friend anymore. At a certain point, you got to stop caring about who likes you and care more about who respects you. I tell my students, my football players and students all the time, I'm not here to be liked. My contract does not say that y'all need to like me. But I do expect respect because I'm going to give it. I'm going to give respect, so I expect respect in return but If you like me, that's a plus. I'm not a jerk. The version of me you get is of your own doing. But I'm not here to be your friend. I'm not here to be liked. You liking me ain't gonna help you reach the next level. You watching my moves, how I operate, how I'm consistent, that's what's gonna get you to the next level. Because as a leader in the community, as a leader in the classroom, as a leader, as a mentor, my actions are what they're gonna follow more than my words. And if my words don't match my actions, I now lose ground. So I don't care about being liked. So I'm willing to lose friends to help the next generation. I'm willing to lose partnerships to help. It is what it is.
It is what
God
it
will
is.
restore it. He'll restore the person, the 10 people that leave, he'll supply me with one that equals those 10.
Mm-hmm.
So I ain't tripping.
No, I'm with you. And I believe that the more that adults align with what their purpose is in life, the stronger their relationship with, if you're believers, the stronger your relationship with God is the stronger your convictions are. And your convictions are not to attack or to put anyone down, but there's something that is in contrast. There's something that convicts the spirit that says that this is not good and I can just not tolerate it. And so, but that's God is gonna say, listen, we're gonna give, you brought it up, so I'm gonna go in there. We're gonna give an account. We are gonna give an account for the life that we live and the opportunities we have. You can correct someone in love and they can receive it whatever way that they're gonna receive it. But our children are dying in the street. And I think is it Joel too, who says our kids are dying in the street. And I'm sorry, that's not acceptable. It's not acceptable for us to be thinking about ourselves and not equip our young people for the future. And so
Right.
I don't care about losing friends. I don't care if I feel led in my spirit to let you know something. Oh, best believe you're going to learn today. I'm going to definitely say it to you. I'm going to say it to you in love, but it's for the greater good. It's for the bigger picture. And this thing is bigger than us. It's bigger than our lives. This is bigger than us. This is about legacy. This is an attack on us. It's been an attack. It's been an attack on us, and it's trying to get our kids. And we're going to sit back and allow that? Like I said on Power of Prayer, hell no. And yeah, I'm crazy for Jesus. No, it's not happening on my watch. You're not coming quietly into the night and taking out our kids. And so I will have the audacity to say, listen, it's wrong. And we should not do that. There's something that compels you inside that takes you above compromising and worrying about someone else's feelings or emotions, that says if something is wrong, we have got to open up our mouths and say something. We're gonna wake up one day, and just like drugs was dropped in the Black community. Go ahead and drop it in the Black community, because did it not spill over into the rest of the world, into the rest of the neighborhood and everything else? If we do not wake up, if we stay silent and we're quiet, everything that we are being quiet about is coming to our own houses.
Well, it wasn't a problem until it leaked out of the Black community into, you know what I'm saying, until to suburbia. When it started leaking, that's the opioid problem.
That's all the problems. I'm telling
you. The opioid problem drugs didn't become bad until it leaked, until it left our community and hit suburbia. Let's be real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, so I just say, we have got to, we really, really got to begin to hold one another accountable in these conversations. And we got to go back to old school. Some of the conversations are meant for our young people to be around and hear. They don't need to hear everything that we're talking about. They don't need to see everything that you're doing. They don't need to be involved in that. It's based on, age, appropriateness. That's what we need to get back to. So listen, folks, we done hit so many different areas. My God, we started off with the affirmative action. And that is something, people, it is here. So we got to do what we got to do. And universities, colleges, everybody's got to prepare, because in the fall is coming. And I don't know if they had any contingencies in place for this, or if they knew. Okay, so Dr. P, you're saying they did. If they knew, they didn't know. But guess what? Now, this doesn't just affect affirmative action in schools, but there's also affirmative action in every capacity. Also, too, any organizations that have been receiving any funding for affirmative action, what's going to happen with that? So this is big, people. This is big. And also, too, wake up, because there's a hidden agenda here. And what is that agenda? What is really going on? That we need to be more conscious of and more proactive and knowledgeable about, instead of sleeping and letting things just happen to us. And so, Dr. P, I'm going to let you, we're closing out. Dr. P, you know, this is heating up, and you guys are going to be leading the way for the rest of the, you're going to be taking charge for the month of July and August, because you're going to let this leader here do the work that she needs to do behind the scenes. So I'm excited. This is going to be real good. I can't wait to like watch and glean from seeing what your conversations are going to be like. But Dr. P, you give us your closing thoughts. Coach Ray, you're up, and then I'll close us out.
Let's let Dr. P go first.
So anybody didn't hear from me, if you notice, I was on Facebook. So go to Facebook and look at the conversation.
Okay.
So yeah, because when these two, when they get in a dialogue, that's the part, that's what we want. We want this conversation. These same conversations that we're having are the barbershop conversations, the conversations that you have only in your home. But what I wrote very specific to my heart was, one of the best things we can do for our children is to show them the respect of what they do hear, what they do see, and what we do. We made the notion that you just can't tell kids, do what I say. This generation is not going for that. We didn't like it.
No, we
So
didn't do
why
it.
on earth right? So why on earth do you think they're going to do it? But that's part of it. Now it's time for us to continue to try to lead and guide them, because we know what the fight is about. They're in this generation and they just know things a little bit differently, but it's now time for us to show them life before, life during, and now life after, when we're having all these things overturned, all the things that are a way of life for us, even because all of these rules and regulations were made before most of us were even born, but now they're getting overturned. And it's time that if we don't fight, if we don't do the grassroots like we did with President Obama, and even the fact of whether you agree with presidents or not, think about even the fact that part of what the president and the people that are now in charge are trying to do is show us we have to help each other as a community. The president comes on all the time and he talks about different things, because these are people that they've seen all of this go from the 1940s, 50s, 60s,
Yeah.
70s, 80s, 90s, zeros, and now the 2020s. So we say that all to say we got to show them by example. We're not going to give up. We're going to keep having the conversations.
Yeah.
We're going to start showing ourselves some respect, so therefore our kids can know what respect is, how to respect our communities. And if we do it, every time anything even goes the way it did today, we have a battle plan. We know how to fight, just like God showed us. You fight, and you show what victory is, because right is right, and stop letting them tell you it's not.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. Coach.
um, we compromised.
Yeah, we do.
We compromised. And please make no mistake about it. I'm not in here saying anything along the lines of like any along the lines of me not liking any person that's not of color. That's not what I'm saying. But we, as people of color, we've compromised. We compromise to fit in or to get a small section of the table instead of building our own and being invited to the table. Every other race, culture, breed built their own table and got invited to the bigger table. We compromised for one chair. And they're starting to pull that one chair from under us. They already didn't give us enough. Systemic legislature and all those things still stand in certain areas. And I'll be brief in this part. One thing that stuck out to me a few years back, I went to the National Archives Museum in DC, and I stood in front of the Constitution. When you actually read those words, 3/5 of a man, It does something to you.
Mm.
When you actually stand in front of the Civil Rights Bill, in front of the Emancipation Proclamation, you stand in front of those things, it does something to you. But we compromised. We compromised our strengths and our goals to fit in because we cared more about being accepted rather than standing out and being respected. Malcolm X talked about it. Nothing against Martin, but Malcolm X talked about it. We compromised.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're reaping the benefits of our compromise and seeing things start to be stripped away. So in order for us to reverse that, we have to build our communities back up stronger than they were before. These young people that go to school, these young people that come home, long gone are the days when they walk past drug dealers on the corner. Long gone should be the days when they out there fighting in the neighborhoods and shooting each other. That stuff should be over with now. The compromise is over. Wake up, save our next generation so we have something to look back on and say, job well done, young people. So we can leave this place, us in our ages, when it's time for us to go, we can leave comfortable because our communities are still standing strong. I don't mean hate anybody. Let me be clear. It's not what I'm saying. Don't hate anybody because of who they are and what race they are. What I'm saying is don't compromise yourself to fit in. Love everybody. Most of all, don't compromise yourself.
And love yourself. See, when you don't compromise is when you love yourself so much that you won't accept anything less than what your worth is. And so I'll say this in closing us out is that we we have got to have a strong conviction. It's interesting that you guys would say it, especially you, Coach Ray, because immediately my mind went to, we got to get our own universities. That was my immediate response because I watched the news. I turned it on and I was like, okay, what's happening over in the US and in the world today?
Oh,
And
yeah.
when I saw that, the first thing was it was overturned. It was like, what? And so now I can't just listen to the ruling. Now I got to listen to all of what the ruling was really about. I got to listen to everything that people are saying, got to flip through my go to channels and find out what's being said. And immediately, there was a young girl a young woman who Duke University, I don't know, Bunmi,
Mm-hmm.
Duke University. She's a student of, and they were interviewing her and giving her. She gave an excellent response um,
Mm-hmm.
in her interview, and I really had to say, I walked away saying, we need our own university. We need our own university, and not to say that it just for Black people, but we need to have our own university as our own options. We need to be able to have our own options. And what's really interesting is to say to yourself, and then I'm going to close on this, why don't we already have them? We're not in a place where we can't. Why don't we? It tells us the results that we are getting as a race. It tells you the collaborative, the unified, the coming together of a people. And what have we been doing with that? What have we been doing with our freedom, so to speak, on a collaborative, large scale effort? I'm going to leave with that. Because like I said to you guys backstage, is that, my biggest thing is I look at results. And we can get on a line for some Jordans. We can get on the line and we can talk about Versace, and yeah, these are real Versace's. We could talk about that stuff. We could talk about that crap, so to speak, but we don't have our own universities. We don't have our own what? And we can do that quietly. We don't have to promote it. We don't have to, you can do that real quiet. I'm gonna leave like that. This was very, very good. I am looking forward to how I can watch you guys all the month of July and August. Well, people, we love you. This has been Bridging the Gap, strategizing for student success. And you really saw us strategizing because this was a hot session. This was a hot session. And we're having real conversations about real issues and real matters. And we need to start changing some things. We love you. It's Thursday. The weekend's coming. Enjoy it. Be safe and have a funky good time. We're out.
All right.